Some countries feel like one destination. Sri Lanka feels like many. Ancient cities rising from jungle, tea-covered mountains wrapped in mist, wild elephants roaming open plains, golden beaches, sacred temples, and landscapes that seem to change every few hours. It doesn't feel like one island. It feels like several worlds in one. Many travelers come to Sri Lanka expecting beaches, but what they find is much more. Ancient wonders that predate most civilizations, wild safaris that rival Africa's finest, mountain trains winding through clouds, hidden villages where time moves differently, and some of Asia's most surprising landscapes. Destinations that feel impossibly different from each other, yet connected by something deeper. A cultural thread that runs through every experience. If you love discovering extraordinary places, subscribe. There's much more ahead. Sigiriya. Start at Sigiriya. And immediately, Sri Lanka feels extraordinary. A giant rock fortress rising from jungle. Ancient ruins on its summit, palaces and gardens built 15 centuries ago. Gardens below, designed with engineering that still astounds architects today. Mist over the forests at sunrise, lifting slowly to reveal the full scale of human ambition. It looks almost mythical, and it may be one of the world's most dramatic ancient sites. The climb takes you past frescoes painted on sheer rock walls, through a gateway carved to look like a lion's mouth, up staircases that seem to hang in midair, and at the top, ruins of what was once a sky palace, a fortress, a statement. A place where power and beauty merged into something unforgettable. This is where many travelers realize Sri Lanka is different. Not just beautiful, not just tropical, but layered with history and ambition that reaches back millennia. But Sri Lanka changes completely in the highlands, tea country plus train journey. Then head into the hill country, and suddenly, everything softens. Tea plantations rolling endlessly across hills that seem sculpted by careful hands. Cool mountain air replacing the lowland heat. Villages hidden in the mist, appearing and disappearing as clouds move through valleys. And one of the world's most beautiful train rides. The journey through Ella feels almost dreamlike. Passing waterfalls that drop into gorges. Crossing bridges built during colonial times. Moving through tunnels carved into mountainsides. And all around, tea pickers working the slopes in bright colors. Their movements rhythmic, their presence making the landscape feel alive. This is where Sri Lanka slows down, where the pace matches the mist, where travelers find themselves sitting in mountain caves, watching the world drift by. And this side of Sri Lanka surprises almost everyone. The contrast from Sigiriya is absolute, from ancient stone and jungle heat to cool green hills and colonial charm. Yet somehow it all feels connected, part of the same story told in different languages. But the island has a wild side too, safari. Then there's the wildlife. And this is where Sri Lanka feels almost African and Asian at once. Elephants moving across open grasslands in herds that stretch across entire plains. Leopards hidden in the brush, among the highest concentrations anywhere on Earth. Bird life everywhere, hundreds of species filling the air with color and sound. Places like Ella feel untamed, not manicured, not controlled, but raw. Early morning drives through landscapes that look more like the Serengeti than a tropical island. Dust rising from jeep tracks, peacocks scattering from pathways, sloth bears emerging from forest edges, crocodiles sunning on riverbanks, and always the possibility of spotting the island's elusive leopards moving through the shadows. This isn't what most people picture when they think of Sri Lanka. But it's one of the island's greatest surprises. And suddenly, this island becomes something more than tropical beauty. It feels wild, unpredictable, a place where nature still holds the upper hand, where wildlife doesn't perform for visitors but simply exists as it has for millennia. Quick question: would you rather ride the mountain train or go on safari in Sri Lanka? Tell me in the comments. But there's still another side to the island. South coast. Then comes the southern coast. Palm beaches stretching for miles. Fishing villages where wooden boats still put out at dawn. Surf towns where waves roll in perfect sets. Old colonial streets in Galley, fortified walls built by the Portuguese and Dutch. And suddenly Sri Lanka changes again. Now it feels relaxed. Coastal, timeless in a different way. Here the pace matches the tide. Mornings begin with fishermen hauling nets. Afternoons unfold on beaches where time seems negotiable. Evenings bring sunset markets and street food that fills the air with spice. The southern coast has its own rhythm, less dramatic than Sigiriya, less mystical than the hill country, less wild than the national parks. But somehow essential, a place where travelers exhale, where the journey settles into something gentler, and somehow it all belongs together. Each region distinct yet connected by the ocean that surrounds them all. But one of Sri Lanka's greatest wonders is spiritual. Temples plus sacred places. Ancient temples carved into rock faces. Sacred caves where monks have meditated for 2,000 years. Golden shrines that catch the light at dawn and dusk. Places layered with centuries of devotion and prayer. From the Temple of the Tooth in Kandy, holding what Buddhists believe is a relic of the Buddha himself, to Dambulla's cave temples, walls covered in murals and statues that have survived since the 1st century BCE, to Anuradhapura, where sacred trees and stupas mark one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. These aren't tourist attractions performing spirituality. They're living sites, places where devotion continues daily, where pilgrims come from across the island and beyond, where ceremonies happen as they have for generations. And this gives Sri Lanka something deeper, not just scenery, meaning, a spiritual dimension that runs through the landscape itself. And that changes how the country feels. Not just a destination to visit, but a place to experience something older and larger than tourism. A connection to traditions that have shaped millions of lives. And then there's something travelers always remember: village life plus culture. The warmth of strangers who become guides. The food that explodes with flavors most travelers have never tasted. Village life that moves to rhythms unchanged for centuries. Spices growing in home gardens. Markets overflowing with produce in colors almost unreal. Rice fields where farmers still plant by hand and harvest with traditional tools. There's a richness to everyday life here that goes beyond what guidebooks describe. Meals prepared with care. Coconut sample ground fresh. Curries simmered slowly. Conversations that happen naturally without agenda. Invitations into homes that surprise with their generosity. Children who wave from roadside villages. Fishermen who explain their craft without being asked. Tea shop owners who remember your name after one visit. This is the Sri Lanka that statistics and itineraries miss. The human layer that makes every landscape more meaningful. The encounters that turn observation into connection. And often that stays with travelers just as much as the famous places. The memories they carry aren't just of monuments and mountains, but of moments. Small exchanges that revealed something true about the island and its people. So what makes Sri Lanka unforgettable? It's the contrasts that somehow work together. Ancient wonders that still inspire awe. Tea mountains where mist and green stretch endlessly. Wild safaris where leopards stalk and elephants roam. Sacred places that hold centuries of devotion. Tropical coasts where time slows to the rhythm of waves. All on one island that somehow feels endlessly varied. An island small enough to cross in hours, yet diverse enough to feel like multiple countries sharing the same borders. Where jungle gives way to highlands. Where highlands drop to grasslands. Where grasslands meet ocean. And where every transition feels natural despite being impossible. And maybe that's what makes Sri Lanka so memorable. It doesn't feel like one journey. It feels like many. Like traveling through time and terrain simultaneously. Like experiencing different versions of beauty, wildness, spirituality, and culture. All woven together by something distinctly Sri Lankan. A spirit that doesn't announce itself but simply is. Present in every landscape, every encounter, every unexpected moment. If you enjoyed exploring Sri Lanka, subscribe for more journeys like this. And tell me, what part of Sri Lanka would you want to experience first? The ancient rock fortresses rising from jungle? The mountain trains moving through mist? The wild safaris where leopards prowl? The sacred temples layered with meaning? Or the southern beaches where time becomes optional? Let me know in the comments. Because in Sri Lanka, every answer is right. Every choice leads somewhere extraordinary. And every journey reveals a world you didn't expect to find.